let's go to the next one. Defined benefits. That's the other problem. Instead of a defined contribution plan like you and me have, 401k, or your own, you set your money aside, whatever like that. Just defined benefit means that they guarantee you're going to get a certain amount, of money for your life if it's a defined benefit plan, right? So it doesn't matter if the market goes up and down, tax receipts go up and down, whatever like that. That's what you're going to get. It's like a guaranteed annuity. That's why I'm saying, in my personal opinion, it's like hitting the lottery. I mean, it's out of control. Now, let's then go on to the next problem. The next problem is early retirement. There are some situations where you're fully, and I'll link to it down there, I believe, maybe I have this wrong, but I believe that in some situations you're fully vested in 6 years. If you hit the age of 55, you can maybe, theoretically, you could start working there at 47 years old, work for 6 years or 8 years, retire at 55, and you get your full benefits for life. You get money for life. Or in the way most of these cases are, 25 years or 55, whichever comes earlier. Some systems it's 30 years. It used to be 35 years, but basically you're going to get your full benefits for life. Different states have, different cities, municipalities have different systems. But basically somewhere in that 25 to 30, 35 year range, you're going to get, if you're particularly in public safety, fire, or police, you're going to get a huge amount of your last year's pay for a lot of these places for life. Now, think about that. If you become a firefighter at age 20, you went to high school, you're out a couple years, you do whatever training you need to do, you become a firefighter at age 20, 21. You work there for 25 years. You retire at, that would be what, like 46? 46. And you're making $200,000 because a lot of firefighters, there's a decent amount that are making that. You get $200,000 for the rest of your freaking life. Counter that to someone that's, let's say a doctor. You're a doctor, you're a lawyer. You go to undergrad school, and college is super expensive now, or you go to law school, or you go to medical school. Now you might come out with undergrad and professional school. You might come out with $150,000, $200,000 of loans, total loans. Not uncommon. Paul, was that very uncommon?
No, that's about right.
$100,000 to $200,000 of loan. I know people with bigger loans than that, but let's call it $100,000 to $200,000 of loan. If you're a doctor, you're going to be paid very little while you do your residency, maybe $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, something like that, for 7 years. Till you actually might make some money. So you have all these huge loans, stuff like that. Similarly with lawyers, I know lawyers that have gone to top 10 schools or whatnot, and they got out and they can't find jobs, or they're making little money, or this and that, whatever. So you have that stuff for life. Then, in order to get your retirement, you have to pay into your own retirement plan, this and that, whatever. Hope that it does well. If you change jobs or roll over, there's issues with that. There's all kinds of stuff. I mean, it's really unbelievable. Job security, forget it. We've all seen what kind of job security there is out there. If you're in the private sector, if you're with the government's hiring, no problem. Not many layoffs there. In fact, we've had issues and stories, and that's for another video, another subject, where it's extremely difficult to even fire these teachers that aren't really teaching great. Okay, so we have a defined benefit, and we have early retirement. And here in California, I think it's 50 years old. Other places, it's 55, but it's still way earlier than Social Security, way earlier than other folks are working. I know people that are seniors that are going back to work at McDonald's because they've lost their money, and they have to do it. If you're a public employee union, pensioner, in the right kind of situation, you're living high on the hog. Again, 12,000 people right now or more, public employee union pensioners, are making $100,000 or more in California. That's just in California. Now let's talk about the other part of this, pay spiking. The formula here, and there's different states. So the formula here in California is that you get, if you're in, I believe, I might have it wrong, but I believe if you're a public safety person in fire or police, you get 90% of your highest last year's pay, right? Your last year pay. So a lot of these people do what's called pay spiking, meaning that they'll do a lot of overtime, they'll do a lot of take their sick leave and all this type of stuff and put it all together so that last year is super high, and that's what their pension is based off of. Not an uncommon situation. Now, in that, you think, well, it's a little overtime, John, it's not a big deal. Well, we have an example down here. We don't know if it's true or not, but it was cited, where I believe there is one person, a police officer or sheriff or one of those, a law enforcement officer, that was making well over 100% of their salary in overtime. Okay? I think it was like, getting close to 200%. So it's really not, so in other words, I believe, and I may have this completely wrong, but I believe their regular salary was like $110,000, their overtime was $183,000. That's significant. Now, I might have those wrong. I got to go back and look at that. So you check that out. We've got everything listed in the description. So you think about that. You think about how intense that is. That kind of pay situation. The pay spiking has got to go. That's got to go. They got to get all that out of there. Then let's go to the next thing, quote unquote, airtime. Airtime basically is something we have in California where it allows people to buy, public employee unions after 5 years, to buy 5 years off their retirement age. In other words, you can be fully vested 5 years earlier if you pay in. We say, well, you're paying for it. Well, hold on. If you do it early in your career, when you're not making as much, because it's pegged off what your salary is right then, if you do it early in your career when you're not making as much, that's not that big of a hit. And then you retire later making 2, 3, 4 times as much. The pension you're going to get is based off that pay package. And even Governor Brown, a Democrat, said, hey, we got to look at airtime. That's another thing. And this is the thing. Paul, I want to take a break right here. I'll go into the rest of them here in a second. It's not one or two things. It's not just one thing. If it were just one thing or one problem, that'd be one thing. It's the combination of these 10 factors that come together to make what I consider, my personal opinion, an egregiously unfair system to the taxpayer. And you were making the point about unions vis-a-vis private versus public unions. It would be one thing if these were private unions bargaining against a private big corporation. But they're bargaining against the government. They're bargaining against us, the taxpayers.
Yeah, that's correct, and it just doesn't, the logic of it doesn't seem to hold up. Again, the principle, at least as I understand it, of unions, again, management has their own interest, and, maybe they're not always trustworthy, so to speak. If you can't trust the government, so to speak, in terms of if you're a union person, a pro-union person, you pretty much tend to be for the government and for government expansion and government overseeing things. You're bargaining against the government. It's just like, well, I don't understand. It's like it almost doesn't make sense to me.
It doesn't make sense in my personal opinion. But let's go to the last 3 factors here before we wrap up. I know we packed a lot of information very quickly, and hopefully the graphics and everything and all the articles will make it even better. We might do another follow-up on this. The next factor, factor 8, is quote-unquote, double dipping. What is that? That means that if you're a public employee union person, you hit your certain age, you hit vested, you retire. Okay, fine, you're retired. Now you're getting your pension. Guess what? A lot of these people go back to work at the same job. And now they're collecting their pension check and their regular paycheck. That's insane. And apparently, I don't know if this is true, but apparently that's done a lot by the teachers and some of these law enforcement things. I think that was going to happen with some of the law enforcement folks. It's like, oh, you retire, but you're going to come back as a consultant, whatever like that. And some of these people, again, are making hundreds of thousands of dollars. In some cases, $500,000, I believe. I might have it wrong, but it's, how is that possible? If you're retired, you're retired. See, this is the problem. This system was supposed to be for people that couldn't take care of yourself. If you're not going to be in Social Security, fine. We have a pension system for you. This is just, make sure that you're okay. You can live when you can't work. But you shouldn't get a pension while you're still working. And I think Governor Brown was collecting 2 pensions or something at the same time. I mean, I may have that completely and totally wrong, but I remember thinking I heard something like that. I mean, it's out of control. The bottom line is you can't, and Governor Brown looks like he might, I hope he addresses this. I hope he addresses this. He looks like he's moving in the right direction to some extent, but he's a Democrat. I'm sure he's going to attack it from a Democrat perspective, meaning that taxes are going to go up and all that type of stuff. We'll see. Well, hopefully he does, what Cuomo's doing in New York. You've got to address this because you can't pay people not to work, and you can't pay people double money to work. I mean, it doesn't make any sense.